Welcome to Sewliloquies monthly art quilt wall hanging. This month in January we are doing a snowflake art scene. So we're going to start out with a background and then 5 different blues, shades of blues. And all of the instructions are available for download at sewliloquies.com. So what I'm doing here is using a fusible web, and you can tell one side of the fusible web is going to adhere to the fabric because it's got a texture on it. The side that you want to press on is smooth. So I put the fusible web down on the back side of the fabric. I did all 5 of my pieces at once just to make it a little more efficient. The pieces are 2.5 by 8 inch cuts of 5 unique shades of blue fabric. For this art quilt, you could use any colors that would make a landscape, even a series of winter whites. I used blues. So there's my 5 blue fabrics from light to dark. And the next step is to start creating a landscape. So here I am using a rotary cutter to cut a gentle wave along one edge of each strip. While I'm doing this, I actually left the fusible web paper backing on until after I finished cutting. And then after cutting the wave, I can remove the paper backing and begin placing the fabric onto the background. So I'm just randomly cutting waves, and then I'm actually trimming the bottom off as I go. So each wave is part of the landscape that I'm creating on the art quilt wall hanging. And I'm going to start at the horizon with dark and then go down to the light at the bottom. So after I've cut my 5 wavy pieces of landscape, I start auditioning them on the background. And the colors go from dark to light in my landscape. So I started with a dark blue, kind of placed a lighter dark blue, medium blue, all the way down to the white. And then once I'm done with the placement, I press it in place. Again, I remove the paper backing from the fusible web before pressing it in place to adhere it. All right, now comes the fun part, making the snowflakes. So I created the snowflakes from a white fabric that had the paper-backed fusible web on it. I cut it down into squares. I'm showing a 4-inch square in this demonstration, but I used a variety of different square sizes from 2-inch up to 6-inch. A 2-inch square will make a really cute little snowflake, but it's going to be difficult to cut. The 4-inch is a challenge enough. So what I'm doing is folding the square in half diagonally to create a triangle, and then folding the square in half again so that it makes a quarter triangle. And I'm using a wooden presser to really get those sharp edges. You can use finger pressing to do the same thing. So again, the square, fold in half diagonally, fold in half again to make a quarter triangle square. The next step is to fold that into thirds. So I eyeballed it. I didn't measure. It's not exact. It's not precise. But I fold a third over towards the middle and then turn it over and put another third behind it. A third fold in front and a third fold in behind to kind of reduce the bulk of that fabric snowflake. So now I've got this little like V-shaped thing, and it does get a little bulky, so I'm using a clip to hold it together. And then what I'm going to do is actually cut that V-shaped off. So I'm cutting at an angle, about a 60-degree angle, and what that's going to do is start to create the 6-pointed snowflake shape. And then using really, really sharp fine point scissors, I start to cut little notches and designs into that, just like if you were making a paper snowflake project with kids. So I created a bunch of little notches. This is completely random. I just chose a spot to cut and I cut into it. And it is a little hard to cut through all of the layers of fabric, and that's why having those sharp point scissors comes in really helpful, because what I can do is really get into that precise corner with the fine point of the sharp scissors and try to get more accuracy. It's still going to look very organic when I unfold this. It's not going to be a super precise laser cut looking snowflake. This is one method of creating these snowflakes for this project. If you want to go find some laser cut snowflakes, or if you have a die cut machine that does snowflakes, feel free to be creative and use whatever kind of fabric snowflake that you feel comfortable with. This is the easiest way to make a snowflake for the project, is to just use fabric with fusible web and folding techniques and then really sharp fine point scissors, because it will give you a variety of snowflakes to put on your project. So the very top of this, I'm going to kind of create a little design to give the top of the snowflake a little more uniqueness, and then kind of dig into that top with a couple of notches just to try to make our snowflake as unique as possible. Every snowflake is different, so every snowflake that we create is going to be different and unique. Again, it is a little hard to kind of cut through all those, so you've got to be patient with the process. And then when you unfold your snowflake, you have a delicate little artful fabric cut snowflake that you can use on your project. Now this does have the fusible web on the back. So now it's ready to assemble, create a couple of different snowflakes. I created, I think, 3 different fabric snowflakes for this art quilt, different sizes. And what I did is, because they were backed with fusible web, just remove the paper backing from the back of the snowflake and then place the snowflakes on the landscape wherever I felt like they needed a home, and then press to adhere the snowflake onto the design. So I created a few more snowflakes. I created little dots of snowflakes using a hole punch, and then artfully placed those snowflakes around on the landscape. And then the next step was to layer the quilt with the top, batting, and backing. And then I quilted using a straight wavy stitch. I quilted along each landscape color. I quilted on top of the snowflakes, around the edges, and then in the center. And then what I do on the back, instead of creating a sleeve to hang these, I actually just use 2 little corner triangles and then insert a dowel and then hang that dowel right on a push pin. So I use little squares. Very easy technique. Take 2 squares, fold them in half diagonally to make triangles, put the raw edges in the corners of the top of the art quilt so that the folded triangle edges are exposed. I did a zigzag around the edge of this one, and then the one that I'm putting the dowel in, I did a binding on it. These art quilt wall hangings are fun and easy to create. January's uses fusible web applique techniques for a creative winter landscape with cut snowflakes. Be sure to subscribe for next month's art quilt wall hanging from Sewliloquies.